You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Tonight, President Trump will be speaking to the nation. He'll be speaking before Congress for the first time in 5 years. But more importantly, he's going to be speaking before the nation. I am super excited about this because I think that it will be an opportunity for him to hopefully make some people aware. You, me, we're aware of what the administration is doing. But unfortunately, those people who are still getting their news from legacy media or from Blue Sky or from Facebook or whatever, they're probably not getting the message. They're hearing the propaganda being pushed out by Democrats. And we're going to be covering what I consider to be the most cringe-worthy version of the Democrats pushing out propaganda that I've seen maybe in my lifetime. This one is pretty bad. No, this one's very bad. Let's be clear about that. But I am super excited about this speech tonight. Now, there is a risk. The Democrats some of them have declared their willingness to try to disrupt the speech, and we're going to see how that plays out. Who's going to look bad during these disruptions? They're supposed to be bringing in a guest. Everybody's supposed to bring in a guest, and those guests are supposed to be people who have been fired from the federal government as a result of the cuts made by DOGE. This is supposed to elicit some sort of sympathy, I'm sure, and we'll see how successful the Democrats are at this. I'm hoping that President Trump will do as he generally does, which is to dismiss them. Just be done with them. Just, you know what? You guys keep doing your thing. I'm going to do my thing, and we're going to make America great again. I hope that they don't get under his skin. And so few ever do. Let's face it, if we really want to break down what Trump's superpower is, it's that he rarely gets angry. I mean, people do and say things to him that should make him absolutely positively furious on a regular basis. But when he's out in public, when he's speaking to the people, speaking to small groups, large groups, doesn't matter. And I know there are very few times when he's speaking to a small group. But even when they attack him, he has this uncanny ability to not... I mean, there's things that I've seen said to him that make me shake as they're attacking him. Okay? Now I'm an emotional guy. Okay, but so, I just want to shoo. Yes, I get upset. I get very angry on his behalf. He, on the other hand, tends to not do that. So we'll see if they're able to get under his skin. I don't think they will, but we know they're going to try. Hopefully, he will be able to deliver a message that is compelling. We need the American people to be supporting his ideas, not because he needs their support necessarily to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, but he does need them to start screaming and hollering and yelling at those in the uniparty swamp who are trying to subvert his agenda, subvert the tasks that are necessary in order to save this nation. We're not talking about, we're going to make America great again because Barack Obama was bad. That was the 2017 message. This is 2025. We're on the brink of utter collapse, not just financially either. Socially, culturally, internationally, this nation has been decimated. Not just our reputation either. Like the nation itself, our resources, our everything has been decimated over the last 4 years. And what President Trump is facing now is far worse than what he faced in 2017 when he began his first term. Praise God, though, that he is far better equipped. He's better equipped up here. He knows far better what to do. He's better equipped with the people surrounding him. I have very few, I do have a couple, but I have very few actual complaints about what he has done thus far. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. I'm excited about that aspect of tonight. Tonight's show, which will be airing at 9 p.m. Pacific, as it does Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. I'll be going over what he went over during his speech. And we'll be talking about that and a whole bunch of other things, I'm sure. But in the meantime, let's talk about things that are relevant right now. We'll get started with the debacle that the Democrats are engaged in currently. I want to note that until we get a clear separation between the morning show and the evening show, until I get to where, basically both audiences are getting the full picture, there are going to be certain clips that I'm going to be playing from the previous show. In other words, last night I had a couple of clips that I played from the morning show that I thought were important enough to make sure that everybody got the message. Same thing today. I've got a couple of clips that I played last night, a couple of segments that we're going to also play again this morning. This is a temporary thing. At some point here, maybe even this week, but probably more likely next week or the week after, we will go to two completely unique shows. Okay. It's number one, we have to figure out what the best time is. And I would encourage you to let me know. We're pretty set on the evening show, but as far as the daytime show, what's the best time? We're going to try obviously a different time today than we tried yesterday. We're probably going to try a different time tomorrow than we try today. I want to see when the audience is there. And I would encourage you to reach out to me. Go to jdrucker.com/talk, jdrucker.com/talk, and let me know what the best time is for you. So without further ado, let's get to our first story of the day. Democrats rely on their base's stupidity and invoke the big lie ahead of President Trump's speech. For those who aren't familiar, the big lie is a concept often attributed, it's not verified, but usually attributed to the Nazis. They said, let's see, let me pull up a quote this is from Walter C. Langer from the Office of Strategic Services back in 1943. In one of his books, he said that people will believe a big lie sooner than a little one, and if you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it, no matter how big it is. The big lie that they told today was echoed in the cringiest way possible. First, we noticed early this morning that there was essentially an identical video posted by Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer. Then a little bit later, we see that Cory Booker hopped in there and said the same thing. Fast forward less than an hour later, and all of a sudden you can add Tim Kaine and Mark Kelly to the mix. Again, same format, same opening, same style, same words over and over again. And I'll play that here in a second. 20, 30 minutes later, add Senator Blumenthal, Kim, Coons, also Brooks, Hirono, Warner, and Tammy Baldwin to the mix. And if you think that it's over, it's not. As of around 8 a.m. Pacific time, they had 22 Democrat senators. Nearly half of their caucus had posted this video. We assume that it's going to end up being almost all of them. Okay, this is how they operate, and this is the big lie, just perfectly expressed. They take a concept, they repeat it over and over and over again. Now, you might think, oh, this is such a bad strategy. This couldn't possibly work. People are going to see through it. You're giving your fellow Americans too much credit if you think that. And I'm not talking about you or me or our friends or necessarily our family. I'm talking about the majority of Americans who aren't paying attention, the majority of Americans who may see one of these 22 examples of idiocy, listen to the words, and be affected by it. Now, if they are to maybe come across a second or a third or even a fourth, this is where the big lie comes into effect. It gets repeated. It gets embedded in their brains, and they start thinking along the lines of, oh my gosh, this must be true if so many people are saying the same thing. That's how the big lie works. If you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it. Now, this isn't targeting you, okay? It's not targeting me. It's not targeting very many Republicans. This is targeting their base because they've been told that either fix your policies or fix your messaging. Now, they can't fix their policies. Their policies are so far gone, so awful, so horrendous that the only way they could fix their policies would be to adopt President Trump's policies, and that's of course something that they would never ever do. So instead, they're going to go to work on the messaging, and this is their solution. But again, I have to say up front, before everybody starts laughing about how stupid this is, you have to understand who they're playing to. They don't care that Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro or JD Rucker are going to go after them. They don't care about you, about my audience. They don't care about the people that would listen to me or any conservative or alternative media personalities. No, they're only going after their base, the blue sky people, the multicolored hair people, the anti-American people. Let's go ahead and play it so you understand what the message is that they're sending out there.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials is not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing. Goose eggs to lower prices for you. Instead, he's pardoned violent criminals who savagely beat police officers on January 6th. That's an effing disgrace. He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs, and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data. Social Security numbers, tax returns, healthcare bills. He's fired thousands of essential workers, people who help our veterans get their benefits, people fighting Ebola in Africa so it doesn't come here. He's frozen funding for vital programs that so many American families need. Cancer research, education funding, payments to family farmers, and so much worse. Why are they doing this? Trump, Musk, DOGE are taking these vital services away from you for one reason only, so they can give tax breaks to their billionaires club. Their plan is awful, simply awful. Billionaires win, families lose. Well, billionaires win, is the truth.
And that is the truth.
All right, so the big lie in all of this, of course, is that President Trump is doing nothing, and the secondary big lie, I guess the big lie 1A would be that Elon Musk is out there stealing your social security numbers and helping to advance his businesses. All of that is tremendously, unambiguously false. Very, very false. But that's why they have to do it like this. Again, the concept of the big lie, repeat it, and eventually stupid people are going to believe it. And yes, I'm referring to their base, because they can't defend their policies. Their policies suck, and Americans are starting to realize that. So instead, they're going after messaging. Now, the good news here is that they failed in a lot of ways. Their big lie attempt today was full of bad messaging. They're trying to improve their messaging because they can't improve their policies, but in many ways, they actually went in the wrong direction. Number one, they start off by invoking January 6th. I mean, come on. Have they not learned their lesson yet? Or is it just that they pull their base and their base is still upset because grandmas were pardoned? I don't know. Not sure what they're thinking there, but I think that was a huge mistake. Next, they go after the whole Elon Musk chainsaw thing, which again, bad messaging, because a majority of Americans support what Elon Musk is doing. The last I saw was like 76%, and you have to assume that there are people out there, probably, about 24% of people who, if you were to ask them, do you support cutting government waste? They would say yes. But then if you ask them, do you support President Trump and Elon Musk cutting government waste? They would say no. Rawr. So I would say nearly every American, if asked a direct question about government waste, that over 90% would agree that yes, there is plenty of government waste, and yes, it should be cut. Now, they might disagree on how. Some might say, take a case by case, take a scalpel to it, have this be a long, drawn-out process over the next 2 decades. Others would agree, and I think a majority of Americans would agree, hey, give Elon Musk a chainsaw, let him chop it off, and then we'll figure out what to plug back in later. I think that's the right approach. It's the only approach that could possibly save our nation, considering the mountains of debt that we're currently under. But then they, of course, invoked the big lie of access. He has access to your Social Security numbers. Folks, and you can please tell any of your Democrat friends that hate Elon Musk or Donald Trump or both, make sure they understand something, that the reason that the Democrats are so opposed to Elon Musk having access to information isn't because they're scared that Elon Musk is going to, I don't know, get your Social Security number and then steal your identity so he can rob you of $14,000 in your savings account. He's not interested in robbing you or anybody else. He doesn't need to. He's already the richest man in the world. The real reason that they're so scared of Elon Musk having access is because with that access, he's able to discover not just the waste, but also the corruption, the crimes that are being committed by the uniparty swamp, by bureaucrats. That's what terrifies them the most. They're not worried about, oh my gosh, he's going to have the Social Security number of taxpayer Donna, a single mom in Hoboken. No, they're like, oh my gosh, he's going to discover that I've been laundering money to my nephew to support his car wash in Hoboken. Nothing against people in Hoboken, by the way. They then said that, they're going after essential workers, people that are trying to cure Ebola, and farmers, and they're making it to where veterans will not get their benefit. These are all lies. Okay, these are bald-faced lies. And the Democrats have exposed themselves in a way by repeating these lies. I say in a way because it would require legacy media to truly expose them. We can say all we want in independent media, and yes, our reach continues to grow every day as people refuse to listen to legacy media lies. But there's still a good percentage of Americans out there who still tune into Jake Tapper or Brett Baer or whoever, and I get it. They haven't woken up just yet, but they will. But in the meantime, we still need legacy media to cover this stuff, and chances are they're not going to. I mean, they went so far as to say that cancer research is getting harmed by DOGE. That is not just a lie. That is a reversal of the truth. Once cancer research is made truly efficient, once we can get, and it's not just going to be through Elon Musk, it's also going to be through HHS, through Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but once we can actually start focusing on the research to cure cancer versus the current state of affairs where it's about treatment. Let's treat the symptoms. Let's make things easier on people. Let's get them on the constant, the hamster wheel of big pharma. That changing to actually finding cures, that's going to be arguably the most monumental legacy of the Trump administration if, Lord willing, they are able to accomplish that. But that can only be accomplished if you cut through the inefficiencies, cut through the waste, and change the entire motivation of our healthcare industry as it pertains to finding cures versus perpetual treatments. But that's a whole other discussion for another day. But bottom line is the Democrats' bald-faced lie regarding that. And then, of course, they're talking about getting tax breaks to the billionaire club. This is what they've been saying for years. Even during the first Trump administration, his tax breaks, they still claim that it was the billionaires club and not the middle class that got the tax breaks, not small businesses that got the tax breaks, even though we've seen for a very long time that's exactly what has happened, and it's going to only get better going forward. So here's your assignment. Dear friends, please make sure, this is one of those videos that a Democrat puts out that I want other Democrats to see. I want them to understand the duplicity of the party and the leaders within the party that they have embraced. I want independents to see this. I want everybody to see it. Yeah, I play the double version, but this has been, it's beyond just Pocahontas and Chuck Schumer. It's almost all of them, apparently. Over half of them, I'm sure, by the time you're watching this. Make sure that your friends know this. Make sure that they understand that Democrat leadership truly, earnestly, I mean, at their heart level, they believe that their base is stupid. They're banking on the idea that their base will hear this message over and over again and think, oh my gosh, Elon Musk is going to steal my social security number and I'm going to become a victim of identity theft from DOGE. That's what the modern Democrat Party wants their base to believe. And if you don't tell them, if you and I don't get the word out to try to wake them up from their Trump derangement syndrome stupor, from their growing Musk derangement syndrome attack, if we don't wake them up, they're not going to wake up at all. They're going to go through their day, go to sleep tonight, wake up in the morning, and feel the same thing, that despite that tingling in the back of their head that says, hey, the Democrat Party leaders really seem to think I'm stupid, they're going to go back to the default setting of, well, at least they're not Donald Trump. The infrastructure here in the United States of America is, how should we put it, challenged. It's old. I mean, it was probably good decades ago, but now it is showing signs of age. And as a result, many Americans would be in a great deal of trouble if there was bad weather or natural disaster or some sort of, God forbid, some sort of attack that would take out the power grid for an extended period of time. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans do not have any real backup. I mean, we'd be sitting there waiting for FEMA or the electric company or somebody to turn the power back on. I am a huge fan of solar. The challenge with solar, of course, is that it can get very expensive, usually thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars to get a good solar generator and system. I have found a good one that is inexpensive, and I mean, relatively inexpensive. It's still hundreds of dollars, but at least it's not thousands or tens of thousands. And it's the one that I use. In anytime there's challenges. It's also portable, so even when we go out, throw it in the trunk or the back of the SUV and go camping, go do whatever. It's always good to have a nice portable solar generator with you at the time. For me, I am a huge fan of the Grid Doctor. Go to jdrucker.com/solar. jdrucker.com/solar. And check it out. I think we're on sale right now. Well, I don't want to say right now because it depends on when you're watching this, but at least as of right this very second, there is a nice sale there. So go to jdrucker.com/solar and get you a Grid Doctor 300 today. This next segment is one that I did last night. Okay, it went a little viral, semi-viral. A lot of people are very interested in the idea of detaching ourselves from NATO, leaving NATO once and for all. And praise God for that, because we do need to do that ASAP. I actually had somebody from the Ron Paul Institute reach out and express their gratitude for this particular clip. So we're going to play it again today, just in case you missed it last night. Okay, so stay tuned, and when it's over, I'll be back for more fresh and awesome content. All right, it's time for some real talk, some real analysis of what's actually happening right now between the United States and pretty much everybody else. Okay, let's call it what it is. It's the U.S. versus the world, not in some military fashion. I'm talking about diplomatically. Does that mean there aren't people out there who are sympathetic to our goals, our desires? No, of course not. There are some who understand, but they're not going to go against the world order. They're not going to go against, for example, Europe and their push to try to get us as involved in the Ukrainian-Russian war as possible. They want us to lead the fight. They want this to be the big boys, Russia versus the United States. No longer do they want it to be Ukraine or any of their boys. They want our boys and girls dying overseas. They want to see World War III happen. They're trying everything they can. Oh, they can taste it. They know it's close. They're right there. Now we might say, oh, don't worry. Nothing to worry about here. Trump would never allow that. Except here's the thing. And we are starting to see a lot of division, further division, even here in the United States of America. The reality is, if Europe wanted to, and specifically the United Kingdom and France leading the way, if they really, really wanted to, and I think they do, they could goad us into war with Russia. All they have to do is, as NATO members, all they have to do is prompt Russia to attack. And it could happen in the form of putting boots on the ground, British soldiers, French soldiers on the ground in Ukraine, get them attacked, and all of a sudden there's war, and they would initiate their NATO bells, NATO sirens ring, and say, "Oh, NATO member attacked. Time to call in the reinforcements. Time to get American boys and girls over here to fight this war." That is their intention. I do believe that. I think that following the ambush, because that's really what it was, the ambush by Vladimir Zelensky and his cronies over at in Legacy Media, as well as European leaders, they intended for this to happen exactly the way it's happening. Now, I should take that back. They didn't think it was going to go that far. They didn't think that Zelensky was going to get booted so quickly. Whether or not they really wanted him to sign the deal, we don't know. I've heard rumors. There are several reports out there that say that, at least for the Democrats, they were pushing for Zelensky to not sign the deal, no matter what. The only way that he would sign is if President Trump would sign security guarantees. In other words, putting U.S. troops in Ukraine to act as human shields, so that once Russia attacked and took out an American soldier, then that would be the start of World War III. They said that was the only thing that would allow them to encourage Vladimir Zelensky to sign the deal. Whether that's true or not, we don't know, and we'll never know for sure. I think it's probably true. I mean, it sure seems to fit the narrative and fit their agenda. What about the other world leaders? Were they saying the same thing? I'd say they probably were as well. I think we're being set up here. I think that President Trump has subverted their intentions at least a little bit, but now they're on to Plan B, and Plan B is, okay, if we can't get the U.S. to put their troops in harm's way based upon the signature and enticement of rare earth minerals, then we're going to force it through our NATO alliance. Zelensky basically said as much over the weekend. Keir Starmer also basically said as much over the weekend as well. And now the French, Macron, is saying pretty much the same thing. This is, again, one big setup. Now, can they outmaneuver Trump? I don't think so. I'm actually, the question isn't whether or not they can outmaneuver him. The question is, can they lay a trap where it makes it pretty much unavoidable? And that's possible. That part is definitely possible because, again, we are a member of NATO, and there's not a whole lot that we could do if Russia does attack a NATO nation. You know, we could just say, no, never mind, but that wouldn't go over very well at all. The world would turn against the United States of America far more than they already have. And here at home, we would have idiots such as Lizzo. Idiots such as Lizzo out there saying that President Trump is starting World War III by trying to avoid World War III. That's, of course, their logic, but they're allowed to have that perspective, even if it's idiotic and very much wrong. But according to this article over at Breitbart, left-wing pop star and former Kamala Harris campaign surrogate Lizzo says the left's warnings about President Donald Trump starting World War III have been vindicated by Elon Musk saying the U.S. should withdraw from the United Nations and NATO. She said, or she posted on Sunday, she said, when we said Trump would start World War III, they said we were being dramatic. Elon Musk supports U.S. withdrawal from from NATO and the United Nations is the headline that she posted over at Blue Sky and all of her 14 followers over there. The headline Lizzo shared was from a Newsweek article reporting that Musk has supported a call for the U.S. to withdraw from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations. The article cited a Saturday night post from ex-user Gunter Eagleman, which read, "It's time to leave NATO and the UN," to which Musk replied, "I agree." And I covered that story over the weekend as well as this morning. Point being is that he's right. You know, we really do need to divorce ourselves from from NATO. We need to divorce ourselves from the UN as well. That's a separate issue, to be clear. That has nothing to do Ukraine. No Ukraine. We need out of the UN as well. But that's something that we can put that on hold. Okay, NATO is a pressing issue, and we must act very quickly. And I'm praying that on tomorrow, Tuesday's address to Congress and address to the nation, that President Trump announces that he's initiating plans to withdraw the United States from NATO. I know chances are slim, but it's not impossible, and we have been surprised. I think all of us have been surprised by 1 or 2 or 10 things that President Trump has done ever since Inauguration Day. Hopefully this will be another pleasant surprise. Hopefully we will hear the good news tomorrow, and of course that would create an absolute tsunami of negative press from legacy media, plus I would say almost an equal tsunami of positive press from independent, conservative, and we'll call it fringe or alternative media. We're going to be supportive of it. Legacy media is going to be against it. The question is, what will the people think? Now, to be clear, change is bad in the eyes of most Americans, even if it's a positive change. People don't like letting go of things from the past, and that's why, at least initially, if we do leave NATO, it will be viewed negatively by a majority of Americans. This is why it's so important for us, our role, yours and mine, to educate and inform people. We should really start now, because I would like to assume that the good news is coming, whether it's coming Tuesday night or next week or next month or some point in the future, Lord willing, before Europe is able to initiate and get themselves stuck into a war with Russia that would force us in. Hopefully before that happens, we can extricate ourselves from NATO. But regardless of when it happens, it's going to be viewed negatively, at least in the beginning. It will be our responsibility to educate our friends and everybody. And here's just a quick bit of help, information. You know, the original purpose of NATO when it was built, 8 decades ago, it was to stop the spread of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists, therefore there really is no need for NATO. But even those who say, well, but Russia still exists and Russia is expanding into Ukraine, that's why we need NATO, I would argue it's the other way around. I would argue that if there was no NATO, then Russia would not be invading Ukraine right now. That's hard for a lot of people to grasp, but the expansion of NATO, eastward expansion of NATO, which we promised, hey, when the Soviet Union broke up, you know, Clinton was promising, hey, we won't go any further, we won't go to the east. You know, you have my word on that. And then what do we start doing? We immediately started going to the east. We immediately started creeping closer and closer and closer to Moscow. Ukraine would be NATO's crown jewel. Both sides know that. That's why Russia has been very vehemently opposed, even as they've allowed other nations to join NATO, despite promises by NATO and by the United States to not do that. They haven't really thrown much of a Russia has not been too opposed to it, but Ukraine that's a red line. That is absolutely positively they would not allow that. And to be fair, neither would NATO, at least before. But we made the mistake, or maybe it was the intention. Maybe there was no mistake. Maybe it's happening exactly like Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris regime, and the globalist elite cabal and their puppets in NATO. Maybe they planned on this Russian invasion. And that's why they told Zelensky before the invasion. They told him, he acknowledged this on CNN years ago. He said, look, they told me that we were not getting into NATO. But they said that I shouldn't say anything, that we should leave it on the table and pretend like it's possible for Ukraine to get into NATO. That way, Russia won't invade. In other words, he was suckered. They knew that if if NATO membership was off the table with Ukraine, the chances were pretty rock solid that Russia wasn't going to invade. But they convinced idiot Zelensky that, hey, pretend like you might get into NATO, and that's why Russia won't invade. Okay, he was conned. He was a useful idiot. And he remains a useful idiot for them. He thinks that he's in charge, but he's not. And I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he realizes or not that he is a puppet. Okay, he might be a very happy puppet, a very rich puppet, a very pleased puppet. Doesn't mind. Just tell me where to go, what to do, what to say. The people will love me. I'll get all the attention I want, and as a narcissist, that feeds my whatever. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I do know this, that we need to divorce ourselves from NATO. Period. And doing so would mean, essentially, since we're using these analogies, it would be basically a trial separation from Europe. And that would be of grave concern to some people, but I think that it would be short-lived. I think that over time, we would be able to rebuild those relationships. And I hate to say it, I hate to be that guy, but I will go ahead and be that guy. I really don't care if we don't rebuild our relationship with Europe. It's probably a bad move. Okay, I'm probably wrong about this one, but I don't care. Nothing against Europe. Okay, I got friends in Europe. So, I've heard good things about Europe. I've heard bad things about Europe, but frankly, I don't care. They need us, we need them, but maybe we don't, and maybe they don't. We'll see. Or we probably won't see, but I would love for us to see. But that is one of the side effects that would happen from us leaving NATO, is that it would have a cooling effect, like I said, the equivalent of a trial separation from the European Union. They would almost certainly form their own army almost immediately allegedly to counter the Russian threat, though, I mean, nobody's talking about this. No, actually, I take that back. Glenn Beck has talked about it. Glenn Beck talked about it. The fact that since we are in year 3 of this war, what does that say about Russia and their military? Are they really that scary? It's like, if they can break through Ukraine, then they're going to spread across all of Europe. That's the fear-mongering that's being done. Really? I mean, would that, if it took them over 3 years to break Ukraine, then I guess the rest of Europe, it'll take them, 300 years? Even parts of Europe? I mean, sorry, Vlad. Sorry, Mr. Putin. You sort of kind of cringe a little bit how much trouble you've had just getting little bits of territory. It's like, yeah, Russia's winning. Okay. But, again, it's sort of like, it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. I'm not scared of Russia. People say, oh, but they've got nukes. Okay, well, they also have what was supposed to be a really strong army. And I'm not seeing it. Okay. Just not seeing it. So maybe the nuclear threat itself isn't that big of a deal either. And perhaps, just perhaps, they, because of their lack of military prowess, and maybe they wouldn't want to even risk getting into nuclear war either. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. Not saying. I'm just saying. So that's where we stand. We need to leave NATO ASAP. There's going to be pain from it. But here's what happens if we don't. If we don't leave NATO, I would suspect that our allegiance, our commitment to NATO will end up getting us involved in a war with Russia. And that will very quickly escalate into World War III. So to those people that say, you know what, maybe can't we just get peace and not leave NATO? I don't think that's possible. I think that, and I shouldn't say it's not possible. I don't think that the powers that be, the globalist elite cabal, the powers and principalities, the people like Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron or or I forgot the new dude in Germany. I think that they are itching for World War III to start. They're trying to use Zelensky. They would have been able to get him to push Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever into war, but since that didn't work out, they're trying to con, use Zelensky and CNN and everybody else to play the art of the deal against the guy that wrote the art of the deal, try to get him suckered into World War III. And by the way, the reason, just a quick side note, the reason that I'm so certain that NATO wants World War III is because of the way that Mark Rutte, the new head of NATO, he has been just absolutely loving on President Trump. I mean, he's been like, oh, it really is Europe's fault. Europe really needs to step up. America has done so much. America is such an important part of NATO. America. He hates President Trump, to be clear, but you never know it. I mean, that you would think that he's. It's not that he thinks that Trump's a friend. You think that he was like a fanboy. I mean, he just gushes over Trump nonstop since the election. Okay, since the election, he's been gushing over Trump on day one. Okay, day one following the election, Mark Rutte was just like, oh, Trump. He hates President Trump, to be clear. Okay, he doesn't like him. He doesn't admire him. He's trying to use him. He's trying to play him. This is why he's trying to rein in, to some extent, at least the rhetoric coming from other NATO nations, the rhetoric coming from members of the European Union who are in NATO, and even members not in the European Union, but who are in NATO. He's trying to rein them in and say, guys, we got to be cool to Trump. We got to be nice to Trump. That's what he's doing. And that's sad, but it's reality. And we have to ask ourselves why. And I would say the reason why is because he knows that the only way that their plans, the globalist elite cabal, could be thwarted from their current trajectory is if the United States of America were to leave NATO. Therefore, I would strongly urge President Trump to do just that. It is time, finally, for us to leave NATO. Period. There's a rush, a gold rush, going on right now, not just by central banks, not just by entire countries, not just by those trying to refill Fort Knox before Elon Musk and President Trump get there. No, there's a gold rush happening amongst individual Americans. It's a gold and silver rush, and it's specifically attracting people of retirement, retirement age. People are starting to realize that maybe they don't need their IRAs or 401ks or whatever stuck in the stock market. Maybe they should be looking at physical precious metals like gold and silver. Now, I am not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to tell you who to talk to if you've already made up your mind and you think maybe I should consider it. Go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com, or call 800-200-4653. That's 800-200-GOLD. And check out what the folks over at Genesis Gold Group can do for you. They are a faith-driven precious metals company. They don't do the scams, the cheats, the tactics, such as offering free or bonus silver. It's never free, and it's not really a bonus. You're paying for it. They just tack it onto the price and then say, "Oh, look, here's free, here's bonus." No. It's they probably have a good role to play in government, at least the old government. I would imagine that DOGE and Elon Musk would sniff out their scams. But if you want to deal with a direct and honest company to do a tax-free rollover or transfer of your IRA, go to jdrgold.com, jdrgold.com. You'll receive a free definitive wealth protection kit, plus you will be contacted by my good friends at Genesis Gold Group. Last night, after I did my segment regarding President Trump cutting off aid to Ukraine, I said, let's see, we'll see what happens. I'm changing my tune just ever so slightly. I am going to vehemently beg and I don't regularly beg, but I'm going to vehemently beg our president and his administration to permanently cut off all aid to Ukraine. And here's the reason why. This isn't just about saving taxpayer dollars. It's not just about not participating in the building up these oligarchs and wasting money and this, that, or the other. This is about ending the war. It really is about ending the war, because right now we're dangling that carrot. We are, okay? We're dangling the carrot of resuming military and financial aid to Ukraine as a way for them to sign a mineral deal or to get to the negotiation table. And I would argue that that might not necessarily be the best way to do it. That if we were to say, hey, guess what? There will be no more aid. Ever. We're done. We've sent enough aid. And here's the thing. Ukraine even came out today, their prime minister came out earlier today and said that they have enough funds and weapons apparently to go on for another year. So they don't need our aid anyway. At least that's what they're saying. But if we were to come out, if President Trump were to come out strongly and say, look, this war has gone on for too long. Too many people have died. People continue to die. America has done its part to do this, and we now realize that any more aid that we send is only going to prolong the war. So we are no longer going to send aid ever again. They want to do a mineral deal? Great. We'll talk to them about a mineral deal. But if they want a single bullet or a single penny of aid to prolong this war, we are not going to participate in that anymore. It is incumbent on Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin and perhaps us or somebody else to get to the table and figure out what can we do to bring this war to an immediate end. We need to stop dangling the carrot of more aid. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and play last night's clip where I talk about the aid, but keep in mind that my perspectives are in the process of evolving, and they may evolve further after that. President Trump halts all Ukrainian aid, at least temporarily. Lord willing, this will extend and mark the official end of this scam, this money laundering scheme of U.S. taxpayer dollars to not just Ukraine, but to the various people, entities, and even entire countries that are participating in this theft, because that's really what it is. It's them stealing from us. It's not like, oh my gosh, we need to protect and help save the people of Ukraine. This isn't about that. This never has been about that. The poor Ukrainian people do need support, but not in the form of government aid going to government oligarchs in Ukraine, the most corrupt nation in the Western world. Maybe the most corrupt nation in all of the world. We don't know for sure, but we do know they are definitely corrupt. We do know that our money is being wasted and that it's being distributed. Not just our money, by the way. Also, our aid, our military equipment is being sold off to cartels, according to Tucker Carlson. So, yeah, this has been a really bad deal for the United States of America, and at least on the short term, it's coming to an end, according to an article over at The Right Scoop. It's just being reported by Bloomberg that all military aid to Ukraine has been halted by President Trump after Zelensky's comments today and his comments the other day in the Oval Office. The suspension of aid isn't permanent, but Trump wants to see Zelensky change his tune, especially as it pertains to peace. He said that peace isn't going to come very quickly. Trump disagrees, and this is the result. Here's what they reported, they being Bloomberg. President Donald Trump ordered a pause to all military aid to Ukraine, turning up the heat on Volodymyr Zelensky just days after an Oval Office blow-up with the Ukrainian president left the support of his country's most important ally in doubt. The U.S. is pausing all military aid to Ukraine until Trump determines the country's leaders demonstrate a good faith commitment to peace, according to a senior Defense Department official who asked not to be identified, discussing private deliberations. We got a leaker, but I would say that in this case, the leaker is probably somebody sent by the administration. The official said all U.S. military equipment not currently in Ukraine would be paused, including weapons in transit on aircraft and ships or waiting in transit areas in Poland. Zelensky is really treading on thin ice here and needs to backtrack quickly. This war has gone on for too long, and it's time to move toward peace. He claims he wants peace, but it sounds like it must be on his terms or no peace at all. That's a recipe for disaster. Now, let's be crystal clear about one thing. Well, we'll probably get to other things, and we'll be equally crystal clear, but this one is the important one. Volodymyr Zelensky does not want peace. Volodymyr Zelensky wants perpetual war. Volodymyr Zelensky's handlers want World War III. I guess that was three things. So, but these are statements of fact that you can argue against if you'd like, but you'd be wrong. Okay, the notion that Volodymyr Zelensky wants peace, if he wanted peace, there would already be peace. He has had multiple pathways to peace. As a matter of fact, he even said the other day, was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when President Trump was talking to Vladimir Putin from Russia, Zelensky came out and he declared that there would be no peace deal unless he's involved. This is the degree of narcissism that this man has. If he were interested in peace, he would accept peace any way that it could come. If he was really caring for his people, the people that elected him, then he would accept any form of peace. He would welcome it graciously. He wouldn't be demanding that his name be attached to it. He wouldn't be declaring that he must be at the center of negotiations or there could be no peace. That is tyrannical. It's oppressive. It's ugly. And before people start saying, well, but he represents the people of Ukraine, does he really? I would argue that he does not represent their interests, has not represented their interests, and will not represent their interests. And they knew this. Let's be clear about something, because a lot of times, especially in legacy media, they'll throw out the statistic that shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, the Vladimir Zelensky's approval rating was at 90%. They're like, President Trump could never be at 90%, and the people of Ukraine love Zelensky. Even though now his approval rating has dropped about 40 points since then, but they ignore that. Oh, but he's still over 50%. He's right there. He's still about a majority like him. Here's the reality of the people of Ukraine and their opinion of Vladimir Zelensky. Before the invasion, before his approval rating, between the election in 2019 and the invasion, his approval rating plummeted. Why? Because the people of Ukraine hated him. And when I say hated him, they realized that they had been conned into electing someone who didn't care about them, who wasn't interested in advancing Ukraine's prosperity, wasn't interested in advancing Ukraine's freedom, and definitely wasn't interested in helping Ukraine to heal, to unify. He wanted the people, the Russian favored, or the people in Ukraine that would prefer to be Russian, okay? He wanted them to be basically subjects. He wouldn't let them leave. He wouldn't let them engage. He didn't even want them to speak Russian. He has oppressed his own people and was oppressing his own people before the invasion. This is why his approval rating dropped down to as low as 25%. And even the very best polls prior to the invasion showed that he was at 37% approval rating. Now, to put that in perspective for us Americans, so that we can understand how bad that is, following Joe Biden's disastrous debate with President Trump, the debate that ended up getting him, his own party to turn against him, okay, to demand that he not run. They all were so horrified to learn what most of us have known since even before his 2020 quote unquote victory, that he is demented. He's losing his mind. He has lost his mental acuity. And even then, after that debate, his approval rating was about 37.5. So Vladimir Zelensky, before the invasion, had made the people of Ukraine so angry that they disliked him more than the American people disliked Joe Biden following the Trump debate. Let's keep that in mind when you hear about how the people of Ukraine love him. You know, you say, well, but how did he jump up to 90%? That's human nature, okay? That's how humans work. We might be opposed to something, but when there's a unifying event, such as an invasion by another country, the people rally around and unify against the common enemy. They might not have liked Zelensky before, but he's the guy that's going to try to stop Vladimir Putin, so they have to like him, even if they don't really like him. But they have to approve of him. They have to rally around him. That's how we work as humans, okay? When there is a common enemy, we might not like the guy that's on our side, but we have to approve of him, at least temporarily. If there were elections tomorrow, and if a viable alternative to Zelensky was offered up, I would say with a 99% certainty that his opponent would win. The reason I say it's 99% and not 100% is because, again, we're talking about Ukraine that is more corrupt than Philadelphia. Okay? It's more corrupt than you take the places in America that have the most voter fraud, the most corruption of officials, places like Chicago, places like Detroit, places like Philadelphia, they don't even come close to the corruption level in Ukraine. So it's definitely possible, a 1% chance, but I would say that it'd be such a landslide that, too big to rig sort of thing, right? I think that he would still lose even in corrupt Ukraine at about a 99% chance. But again, we don't know how far they would go to try to keep Zelensky in power, especially considering that he is a puppet of the globalist elite cabal. Okay, he's their point man. He's their face. He's the one who can help them to achieve their ultimate goal, which is to start World War III against Russia and China, for that matter. So, kudos to President Trump. Kudos to our military. Kudos to the entire Trump administration for putting this aid, this money laundering scheme on hold. For now. Will it be permanent? Probably not. There's probably going to be some sort of deal made in the near future that turns on the aid, and that I will be opposed to that. I will be regretful of it, but I'm also realistic about what is most likely to happen. But then again, you never know. President Trump continues to surprise us pretty much every day. Hopefully, Lord willing, he's got a big surprise for us coming soon. He's going to say, we're out of NATO and Ukraine is on their own. And if that happens, praise God for that. I'll feel bad for the people of Ukraine. I'll feel bad for the British and French soldiers that are sent into harm's way. I'll feel bad for the Russians, who many of them whom they don't want to invade. They don't want to participate in this, but they're forced to. There's a lot of bad things happening in Europe. I can be empathetic to that, but my concern is America. And as far as I'm concerned, whatever's happening in Ukraine, whatever's happening in Europe, whatever's happening in Russia, it is not our concern. DOGE drops examples of improper payments that they've already observed. This is a month and a half into the Trump administration, and they're already finding massive amounts of waste, fraud, and corruption. And they're not alone. There seems to be a DOGE mentality spreading across Washington, D.C., at least within the Trump administration. I shouldn't say spreading across the entire city, because most in the city, most bureaucrats, most politicians, they are vehemently opposed to DOGE, even if they're not expressing it. They're terrified of what DOGE might uncover as far as their sins, their crimes, their waste, fraud, and abuse. But some are very happy about it, and some are working to help the Trump administration uncover this waste and save this nation, because it is not hyperbole to say that what DOGE is doing is attempting to save the nation. Our national debt is untenable. It is unsustainable We will be crushed under it. It's not a matter of if, but when, unless we're able to engage in massive cuts. This is austerity on steroids, basically. And that's a good thing. We need it. We desperately need it. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to go far enough, fast enough. As fast as they're going, they need to do more, and they need to do it more rapidly. But we can cover that another time. Let's focus on the positive, because this is exponentially better than anything we've seen in government in our lifetimes. According to an X post over from the DOGE account, they said, here are some examples of observed improper payments. This is likely being done at scale. In other words, this little sampling, of one item or two items or three items, you could count for every one item, you can count 1,000 items that are very similar as far as amounts, types of waste, even the individual departments and agencies that are doing the wasting. So according to the list, after an order for expedited deportations was issued in 2017, a migrant from Honduras used 3 different Social Security numbers to submit 73 Medicare claims totaling $48,000. One migrant, 78 Medicare claims. After being issued a deportation order. It's like, that alone, we could stop right there. That is Washington, D.C. in microcosm. That is a perfect example of what is happening. But we're not going to stop there. Let's keep going. Medicare paid $49,000 for a rehab center for a person recorded dead for over a year. What were they rehabilitating? What were they doing? What were they helping? Where did that money go? Who got that money? Because somebody did. It's not like the money gets paid and then it flutters away and disappears into the ether. It's in somebody's pocket. Could be the rehab center itself, could be some individuals, could be a group of people, who knows? But somebody got paid to rehabilitate a dead person. Medicare paid $57,000 in 2020 for a person recorded to have died in 2006. More of the same. After a warrant for her arrest was issued in 2019, a migrant from Colombia received 3 SBA loans for $100,000. But thankfully for her, over $99,000 of those loans were forgiven. A migrant from Peru received Social Security payments since at least 2007, with all benefit checks being mailed directly to Peru. I wonder, did you sign up for that? Are we on the whole payout or Social Security debacle, because it already is a debacle, and let's pay out tens of thousands of dollars to Peru? Now, again, we have to know, you might be like, oh, but that's only like $49,000. Okay, well, again, we're talking about this happening at scale. In other words, take whatever numbers you hear, and I'm being very generous when I say multiply that by 1,000, because in many of these cases, these are examples that can be multiplied by 10,000, even 100,000. I hope that we're not talking about certain things that can be multiplied by 1 million, but hey, you never know. At the very least, thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, oftentimes hundreds of thousands of similar cases where it's like $10,000 here, $20,000 there, $50,000 here, $500,000 there, $3 million here, $250 million there. It's gargantuan. This isn't like trying to find needles in a haystack. This is like trying to find specific needles in a needle stack. It is difficult. This is why DOGE is perfectly suited for it. I actually did. I'll admit, I can admit this now after the fact. I had certain questions, certain doubts in the back of my head about Elon Musk's ability to be able to pull this off. It wasn't that I doubted his heart. I was never under the illusion that he's going to try to steal our money or put out things that are going to help Tesla or SpaceX or whatever. No, I thought perhaps that he was taking on something that was beyond his skills. You might think, well, why would you think that? He's been able to build all these companies, PayPal, SpaceX, Tesla, he saved Twitter and blah, blah, blah. And my answer would have been, that's why. because it's not like this guy is just sitting around, playing Xbox all day. He's got humongous companies, multiple humongous companies to run. I didn't know if he was going to be able to hop in there and do what he's doing. But then, what I've learned at least, is that this is his priority. It's not that he's abandoned SpaceX. He's just got good people to run it. It's not that he's abandoned Tesla. He's got a great team that is taking Tesla to the next level. No, he's putting his time and his effort into this, and more importantly, the time and efforts of his best people. Okay? We can make fun of, look at that guy named Big Balls who's 19 years old. There's a reason that he got hired to do what he does. And it's not because he's an idiot. And it's not because he has poorly chosen handles on social media. It's because the guy's smart. The guy knows how to find stuff. And that's what we need. We need algorithms, even artificial intelligence. As much as I rip on AI, that's necessary to be able to unwind the most gigantic, by far the most gigantic knot of economic falsehoods that the world has ever seen. And you could take every financial scandal from the beginning of human history, put it all into one gigantic ball, and it would still be infinitesimal compared to the U.S. government's cluster of waste that has been accumulated over the decades. It does take somebody like Elon Musk, and perhaps uniquely Elon Musk, to accomplish this. Praise God for pulling this forward. I mean, this is something I would not have had this if you had given me a group of 100 brilliant people to sit around back in, say, 2022, and start picturing what the Trump administration would or could do and who would be in there. There's zero chance any of us would have thought that Elon Musk would be taking a chainsaw to the massive bloat of bureaucracy that is Washington, D.C. None of us. Nobody. You could have given us a full year to come up with every possible idea. That wouldn't have been one of them. And yet here we are. And I do praise God for this. This is not, Trump, great. I'm glad that Trump came up with this, or Elon Musk came up with it, or they all came up with it, or JD Vance, or whoever. But this is one of those things where I truly have to think, my goodness, only through the graces of our Lord could something like this happen. Could something, and I'm not, before anybody starts thinking that I'm getting all worshipy towards Elon Musk or Donald Trump, I'm not. If anything, I'm saying that they are just the tools that are being used. If America is to survive, this is the path. And if America is not supposed to survive, then this is the path. But either way, I believe that this path has been laid forth by greater powers than just the machinations of Donald Trump or the brainchild ideas of Elon Musk. I think that this could be either the beginning of something amazing or the end of something amazing. We'll see. And people are like, wait, are you suggesting that DOGE is going to be a catalyst for the apocalypse? No, not at all. What I'm saying is that because of what DOGE is doing, that somebody else, outside forces, might seize on this as an opportunity, out of desperation perhaps, to burn the entire thing down. That's still a possibility. But it's one of those scenarios where we don't have another option, because this path, going down the DOGE chainsaw path, means that we have a chance without cutting the massive waste, the bureaucracy, the fraud, and the corruption in D.C. If we don't do that immediately, then we are done. We are toast. We would not survive as a nation, which is why I'm praying. If we want to pray for something to happen in government, which I don't necessarily recommend, by the way. I think that's kind of a waste of our prayers. But if we were to pray for something, it would be that the Supreme Court unleashes DOGE. And by what I mean is, and not just DOGE, but the Trump administration in general. The lawfare against them is the only thing that's crippling us at this point. It's not the protests. It's not the Democrats singing their songs or doing anything like that. Lawfare is the only thing that can truly truly suppress DOGE at this point and the Trump administration. And in many ways, they are winning. They are getting their victories. It will be up to the Supreme Court to decide, number one, whether or not to even take these cases, and number two, how to rule upon them. I pray that they take on all of the cases and rule positively on all of them. We need the Trump administration to be unleashed in order to accomplish what is necessary. And with as many victories as we've had over this last 6 weeks, we need 100 times more than that if we really are going to save this country. So pray for the nation. Pray for President Trump and Elon Musk and all of our leaders, the good ones at least. Pray that the bad ones come to their senses or are removed, one or the other, I don't care. And pray that the American people get a reprieve from the judgment that we as a nation so desperately deserve. We deserve to crumble. Let's pray that that doesn't happen, at least not anytime soon. Is the bird flu just the latest example of the powers that be attacking our food supply? I would argue that yes, it almost certainly is. Now, I'm not a doctor, not a scientist. I'm not sitting there in a laboratory looking into bird flu and trying to figure out if it was man-made or if it's, really spreading to whoever, or if it's in this milk or that chicken or those eggs or whatever. I'm not doing any of that. All I'm doing is looking at the writing on the wall. And the writing on the wall for the last few years has said, hey, they're attacking our food supply. It was Klaus Schwab. No. Sorry, it was the other guy, Henry Kissinger. There we go. His predecessor, his mentor. It was Henry Kissinger who said, who controls the food supply can control the people. And it seems as if that's exactly what they are trying to do. I'm a huge fan of, number one, freeze drying your own food, okay? If you have the time and the money, go get you a freeze dryer. You can go to jdrucker.com/harvest, jdrucker.com/harvest to get you a very high quality freeze dryer, the freeze dryer that we use in my companies. Or if you don't want to spend that kind of money, because they're pretty expensive, or you don't have the time or the energy or whatever, you don't want to do it yourself, it's time to stock up on long-term storage food. You can find 4, count them, 4 awesome options, ways that you can start to accumulate, or continue if you already started, to accumulate high-quality, long-term storage food, oftentimes food that will last 25 years. Start getting it built up as best you can, because there may come a time in the not-too-distant future when acquiring food will not be as easy as it is today here in the United States of America. We're already seeing inflation. That's already hitting us. What happens if they inflate it all the way? What if they really try to make us eat lab-grown meat, quote-unquote meat, abominations, or whatever, lab-grown something, GMO this, GMO that, or heck, bugs, crickets, cricket burgers. Get in line for your mealworm bread, the mealworm bread lines. Gosh, so many possible ways that they can come after us, attacking food production plants, again, bird flu, whatever. And I don't think, people, well, no, the Trump administration won't do that. I don't think this is the Trump administration, to be clear. If anything, I would say that the most likely candidate, of course, is the globalist elite cabal. Second most likely candidate would be communist China. There's a reason why they're buying up as much farmland as possible. And for whatever reason, we've allowed that. But hey, I'm focused on the future. Go to jdrucker.com/food, jdrucker.com/food, and stock up on as much long-term storage food as you can. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I know I don't say it nearly enough in the middle of the show, but it is imperative that we get as many subscribers as possible. I don't care if you're listening on Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, Getter. Please subscribe and get your friends to subscribe. We need as many people, as many Americans as possible watching alternative media, which I represent. Okay? Like Fauci says, I am the science. Well, I am alternative media. Okay. So maybe there are other members of alternative media out there. They're fine too. I no problem with them, but I do feel that sometimes, maybe often, that my perspectives are perspectives that that people need to hear. Is that egotistical? You betcha. But if I wasn't egotistical, I probably wouldn't be doing a show. And anybody who's doing a show that claims that they're not egotistical, they are. That's just part of the nature of being here, talking to as many people as possible about our ideas and ideas of the patriots around us. That's what I like to do. Be sure to thumbs up and like or whatever, all that good stuff, because it really does truly help the channel. I'm learning that more and more every day, especially on YouTube. Look, I know I've ripped on YouTube very hard for a very long time, and rightly so, and I'm not going to stop, to be clear. But I also recognize that there are still plenty of people out there, many of you, that watch on YouTube. And so I have to embrace that notion that if we're really going to focus on reaching as many Americans as possible, then YouTube has to be part of the equation. Now, I won't stifle or suppress any of my content. So unfortunately, that means that at some point, maybe in the near future, I might start getting strikes. Okay. Thankfully, the things that we've been talking about haven't been strike-worthy lately, but not because I'm not going to talk about them, just because what's happening in the news today is, I guess, YouTube friendly. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, follow me everywhere. You can find all the various places to follow me over at jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. That does include my Apple Podcast, which we will be reviving, hopefully, Lord willing, this week. So I'm very, very super excited about that. I will be watching the speech by President Trump tonight, and I will be going live at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and whatever time zone you're in between. I'll be going live to discuss that, and I'm sure whatever else happens the rest of today. I will be going on with the great and brilliant polymath Alex Newman here soon. I'm not actually, and it's not live, so I don't know when that's going to air, but I'm going to see if he'll let me air it on my channel as well. So you might get a bonus, not just me. People say, you don't do enough interviews. Well, I generally don't like doing interviews, but I like being interviewed. Again, maybe that's the ego aspect of me, but yes, I will be doing a nice long-form interview with Mr. Alex Newman here later on today as well. So super excited about that, and just about the prospects of the United States of America. Continue to pray, and start praying if you haven't already, because we do need prayers, perhaps more than anything else. I know a lot of people say, prayers don't do anything. They do. I mean, demonstrably they do. Absolutely, positively, they do. That doesn't mean that all of your prayers are going to be answered. Well, they do get answered, just not necessarily the way that you want them to be. God knows best. We just have to trust in His plan, and His plan for us, not just for the United States of America, though that's obviously very important to us as well, but also His plan for us as individuals, as families, as communities. Those things do require our prayer and our appreciation of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, above all other things. So, yeah, talk to you tonight, hopefully, Lord willing. I will be back with another episode very soon, but in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.